Bob Holt is joining us here from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Got to see Bob in the press box both at O'Brate Stadium and in Chapel Hill at Boshamer. And not on the trip to Omaha, but he certainly has been around this team long enough over these last couple of weeks to have an appreciation of what they've pulled off. Bob, how you doing today? And I know you got to be happy being back home after these last couple weeks.
Yeah, and it's not like we aren't covering the event. I mean, Tom Murphy has covered a lot of baseball this year there, and Matt Jones, for Full Hog Sports, he covers a lot of baseball, so they'll be up there. And Charlie Kaiser, our photographer, he's been every step of the way since Hoover. He does a great job with photos posted online and in the paper. So yeah, we'll have the event well covered. But yeah, it's nice to be home. My cats are especially happy to have me back. Someone. Friend takes care of them, but they definitely like it when I'm around.
Yeah, I need somebody to go say hi to my cat at some point because I've been gone from her for like 20. I think it's been 22 of the last 26 days we've been on the road. So it's a good thing I got that automatic feeder. Really good thing. Bob, you wrote from the post-game press conference on Sunday about. It seemed I didn't want to talk with the coaches or the players very much about 2021 or the heartbreak of 2021. If I ever made any comparisons, it was just about some of the strengths or weaknesses from last year's team compared to this year's team. But it seems no doubt, reading your story and hearing the comments from all of them, and then even in the past couple of days as I've sat with Dave a little bit, 2021 was still in their minds in the 2022 Super Regionals, wasn't it?
Oh, so without a doubt. And, of course, there's always turnover in college baseball, and there was some turnover on this team, but you had a really big core of players who played last season. I think I added up 6 of the position starters Sunday in that game at Chapel Hill, played on the team. You had some really key guys like Robert Moore and Jalen Battle, Brady Slavens, of course, had the big hit, Caden Wallace, and others, and then you had some newcomers like Michael Turner and Chris Lanzilli, the grad transfers, paid Stovall. But Matt Jones wrote this. I think I got this right or read it right in Matt's story. That 17 of the 27 guys on the travel roster, 17 of them were on the team last year. So, you had a lot of players who went through that last year. Just a tough situation, which happens to these number one seeds over and over again. I was kind of amazed to look it up. Baseball America had a really good story and graphic that since 1999, when they started doing 16 seeds for the tournament and doing number one overall seeds, this year with Tennessee was the 10th time a number one seed did not make it to Omaha. So that's like a number one seed in the basketball tournament not getting out of the Sweet 16. Obviously, Arkansas did that to Gonzaga this past season, but it kind of blows your mind that the last number one overall seed, the only number one overall seed since they went to this format in 1999 was Miami in 1999. So, what happened to Arkansas last year, while maybe it shocked a lot of people, it really happens quite a bit, and just goes to show how tough it is to get to Omaha. And these guys, I think that was a big motivational thing for them, as well as, a tough finish and wanting to show everybody that they were that team that everybody had, in the top, 3 or 4 for most of the season.
What do you think that if there is a lesson for us as fans, for what we've seen in this last month to 5 weeks, because in college football, you lose a couple of games, you don't have a shot at the national title anymore. Basketball's a different thing, but certainly you pay attention to the seeding, and you don't want to have to face the first or second seed early in the tournament. Baseball feels like a much different thing, and I think for teams out of the SEC, you know that there are highs and lows throughout the season. But it seems to me, and it took me a few years to kind of figure this out. If you make it to the NCAA tournament, that you're probably a pretty good baseball team. You've done enough in the SEC to beat good teams and make it to the postseason. So it's really all about getting there and then seeing what happens from that point. And this team did exactly that. I mean, they struggled in the last couple of weeks of the regular season, lost a chance to win a division championship. A lot of folks might have given up on them. They never did, and here they are, Omaha.
Well, I think there's a few things. One, it just goes to show you what a great coach Dave Van Horn is, and I wrote about this, and there's probably been other talk, but this is the fourth time since, I guess, 2009 that Arkansas did not host a regional and win, and is in Omaha. And in all those cases, they had some kind of similarities in terms of a tough ending or going 0-2 in Hoover or whatever. And the one common denominator through all those years is Dave Van Horn. I mean, he's taken Arkansas to 18 NCAA tournaments in 20 seasons. That doesn't count 2020. I think it's a pretty safe bet he would have done that. So they had the hiccup in 2016 when just a lot of things went wrong with that team, and they just had a bad year. And then you look at what he did at Nebraska. The last 4 years at Nebraska, he went to the NCAA tournament and 2 College World Series. So that's 4 and 20. In the last 24 years, he's gone to 22 NCAA tournaments and likely 23 if it hadn't been for COVID, and 9 College World Series. I mean, that kind of consistency is not easy to come by. And so first, I think you have to point to Dave Van Horn and the program. I mean, obviously, he built on the great foundation that Norm DeBryan set from really nothing. You know, Norm DeBryan is the architect of the modern Arkansas baseball program. He's the reason they have Walker Stadium, and Dave was able to come in and build on that, kind of like what Nolan Richardson did with Eddie Sutton's basketball program. And so I think that's the first thing you have to point to. And also, just, you know, most teams have a tough stretch during the season. Arkansas happened to come at the end, so maybe it stands out a little bit more. You know, let's say Arkansas lost 2 out of 3 to Kentucky to open the season, and then they'd won 2 out of 3 at Alabama to end the season, and maybe they win a game in Hoover. Well, maybe they host a regional. It seems like you have to look at the season in totality, and Arkansas was 18-12 in the SEC. Well, that's pretty darn good. And then you look at, they lost 2 or 3 at A&M. Well, A&M's in Omaha. Well, they lost, they beat Ole Miss 2 or 3. That looks a lot better now, because Ole Miss was struggling at the time. They won 2 or 3 at Auburn. That looked pretty good at the time. It looks really good now, considering Auburn went out to Corvallis and beat Oregon State. So, and they lost to Stanford. That seems like a lifetime ago. Both teams have changed so much. So, but yeah, I think you just have to really appreciate. If you're an Arkansas fan, I hope you appreciate Dave Van Horn being your coach and just the consistent excellence that this program's had over the years. I know he had one national title. That's the only thing he hadn't done. He's come close, and I think I think this tournament's wide open. It wouldn't surprise me if any of the 8 teams won. Certainly Arkansas's got a good shot, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby, talk about how consistently great Dave Van Horn's been. And I don't know enough about college baseball, especially the history of it. I've always liked college baseball, but I'm far from a historian. I don't know if you would know this. Do you think that with the consistency Dave Van Horn has had, not just, like you said, at Arkansas, but before that at Nebraska, I mean, is he a national championship away from being put on a legitimate Mount Rushmore list of greatest college baseball coaches of all time?
Well, I guess, I don't know. Mount Rushmore has 4 people on it. So, Dave, I don't know if I'd put him in the top 4. You could think about coaches, like Rod Dado and Cliff Gustafson and others, Augie Garrido, that have won multiple national titles. But yeah, I think it's a lot harder to win now than it was. I mean, more teams are playing college baseball. More teams are putting the resources in. I mean, you look at the SEC, and they've had. I mean, Mississippi State won the national title last year. They're not even in Omaha. Vanderbilt's won 2 in the last 7-8 years, but they're not in Omaha. Although they did go to the NCAA tournament. This league is just so deep, and it's going to get even deeper when Texas and OU get into it. And of course, they're both in Omaha. And so doing it in the SEC in this day and age, the way Dave Van Horn has, is really impressive. I'm going to say, no offense to Dave, I don't know if I could put him in the top 5, but I think he's like in the top 25 all time. And obviously that resume would just get even more impressive if and when they could win a national title.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as Saturday's matchup goes against Stanford, I think that a lot of people will know how it's going to go based on how well Connor Noland sets the tone. So I'm just going to ask you, Arkansas wins if Connor Noland goes blank amount of innings. Does he need to give 6.2 like he did last time, or if he gives a solid 4 and that bullpen's able to work, that's enough?
Well, I think if Connor Noland only goes 4 innings, that's a bad sign for Arkansas because he's obviously an older guy. And you look at his season, and he pitched really well. Probably the first half of the season had a lot of went into 6+, 7. Even when they lost to Ole Miss, I think it was 4-2 or something. He pitched 8 innings, and he gave up a lot of hits, but he gave up 4 runs, and he did have his best stuff, but he just battled. I think ideally for Arkansas, you'd like to see Connor go 6+, 6 or 7, and then maybe turn it over to that bullpen. But he's he kind of hit a lull there in the middle of the season. There might have been fatigue setting in because he hadn't pitched a lot of innings the previous 2 years because of COVID, and then he hurt his arm last year and missed like 2 months. But he seems to have regained that form he had when he was so dominant, especially, I think, a back-to-back starts against Mississippi State and at Florida when, he just shut those teams down, I think, going 7 innings in both games. And so I think ideally for Arkansas, Connor would get 6 or 7 innings. Then you turn over to the bullpen because you got to look ahead to the next game, too. And I assume Will McIntyre will be their starter. He's pitched real well. But maybe not as deep in the games as Connor, but you'd like to have that bullpen set up. Because the thing is, and you guys know this, if you win at Omaha that first game, it really sets up well if you can win and get a couple days between games. That really lets you rest your pitchers. And you might be able, if they can win the first 2, they might be able to bring Connor back in their third game. So, ideally, I think for Arkansas to have a good shot to win, you want Connor to go 6 or 7.
Bob, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you, man. Hopefully, team can stay here for a while, and maybe we can get you up to the Emerald City if they're playing for a national title.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.